Well, what are some of the fruits you should see? Well, we talked a little bit about church attendance, or at least valuing that, but I'm going to talk another fruit level, and that's giving. I don't know how you
Mm,
ask somebody what they give, but if you're
yeah.
not giving to your church
Yep.
and or giving to a parachurch ministry, if you don't see giving in their life, isn't that a problem?
So yes, it is. And I think so. People, if anyone's listening or watching and isn't a Christian or a person of faith, there's a New Testament verse. We believe in tithing, and it's giving 10% of your gross income, not your net. And I don't want to get into logistics of, well, does it have to be your church? I personally believe you could do a ministry or like a faith-based organization that feeds starving children. So I don't want to get into that because I know there's different. But yes, I think giving, it's the whole verse of like wherever your treasure is, there your heart is also. I think that was Jesus. So here's the problem. Like I was going when I was thinking about our talk, I'm like, well, why shouldn't you be unequally yoked? If you don't have to raise kids together, you can respect each other. Why can't you get married as long as he's a good person? And the problems that will come when I was thinking about them, one major one is money, is use of your money. Because if you're a Christian, you're going to give. And if someone comes to you and needs money, you're probably going to give it to them, and you're probably not going to be very materialistic. It's just not the lens that you're going to live life. And that could be, we've both been married. Most people watching or listening have been married. How many of us hadn't had fights about money and how to use our money? So throw two different views on what money even is. Everything comes from God. It's not a natural way to think. It's a supernatural way to think. You have to understand everything comes from God. And that's a tricky one because this is like put your money where your mouth is.
You're 100% right that if you don't have the lens of whose money it is and what the priority is, it's not to collect as much as we can so we can retire early and live the life we want. Not that that's not a layer of it. We're supposed to be
Yeah,
responsible. We don't want to be burdens to our kid or
yeah, nothing wrong with that.
society. But
Mhm.
but but the lens. I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit of the theology just because this is what this podcast is all about. We're going to touch all the parts. Um, a wise man once told me, because I'm in the fundraising business, that's literally what I do. Is I help Christian churches, nonprofits raise money to help fund their ministry. So I
Mm.
have thought long and hard about this topic,
Mm.
and so I went to a couple pastors and asked this question. Sorry, this feels like a rabbit trail, but I think it really fits here. And that is, what is our role when it comes to giving? Because I think a lot of pastors think incorrectly that our goal is to give 10% to our church and then anything above and beyond sacrificial somewhere else. But you owe your money to your church first and then hit your 10% and move over, which is biblically incorrect. And a lot of pastors would,
Most people think that.
yeah, they would flip their lid if you preach something
So what
different.
do you believe, or what's the truth then?
I believe the truth is there is clear biblical evidence that we are supposed to give to our local church. That is a fact. If you are ministered to, if you're part of a local body, you need to give to that body. That's a
Yeah.
fact. There is no rule of 10%. Tithing is an Old Testament thing. New Testament is a cheerful giver. And in the New Testament, we see people who literally were giving to the apostles, laying at their feet, meaning there wasn't a
Mm.
10% tithe. It was people were selling whole pieces of land and
Yeah.
giving it. It was
Yeah.
community based giving
Yeah.
to help those in need in your church. The apostle Paul, in traveling on his missionary journeys, there was a famine going on in Jerusalem. And as he was going around to Philippi and you know, Corinth and all places, he was collecting money to give back to the people in need. He was
Mm.
literally parachurch ministering and collecting money
Yeah.
that was not for a local church, it was for people. So we have New Testament giving that's above and beyond, but it's not a 10%. He didn't say give to your church first, but we are to give to our church and we are to give to people in need. Period. In the story, there's no 10% rule and there's no priority of which one is more important than the other one. But you cannot give your money to a 501c3 if you're not giving to your local church.
I
It's
agree.
not max out at 10 and then anything and above. And
Mm.
so, yeah, it's not controversial. Like my argument is, if you disagree, prove it. Find me the scripture there's no scripture in the New Testament that tells you to tithe to your church 10%. Zero doesn't exist. That was an Old Testament to the Israelites, and
So your
there's
caveat is
tithing's not even a New Testament word.
okay. So you think the percentage, there's no percentage in your mind. It should just be, you should be giving to what God calls you to and do it cheerfully. and do at least something to your local church if you would.
100%. And when
Yeah.
people say, what about 10%? Then my argument would be, that'd be a great place to start. What if it's 20?
Girl,
Hey,
I'm for 10%.
if you say 10, then that means if you give 11, is that wrong? Did God, he told you 10. Like, it's just a great place to start. Like, be a cheerful giver. Give.
Yeah.
A
No, I
Christian
think 10 is the
gives.
bare minimum. I just always thought you had to tithe 10%. Most people I know believe that. So,
Well, I
well,
know, and that's what most pastors assume, which is why I have a whole course for churches, because I'm like,
okay.
what frustrates me is I have pastors who statistically only like 20 to 30% of people give in a church anyway.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I know. I
if you're
know.
sitting there saying, "Oh, well, I wish people gave," it's like, "Oh, well, first of all, you're not giving them anything to give to.
Yeah.
That's your fault." And
Yeah.
then the people in your pews are giving out hundreds of millions of dollars a year to nonprofits. They'd give
Mm,
to you if you gave them something to give to. They
totally agree. That's why
yeah,
I think I would never go to a church that didn't support missions and like local missionaries who come and report in and all of that. I think that's nuts.
thank you.
I mean, we will never, I don't even know if contemporary Christian church, the way it's set up structurally, is biblical. Because if you look at New Testament church, there was no buildings. Church is believers, so there's no church building. The point of church there was to take care of the widows and orphans. Everyone gave, everything pitched in. I mean, it sounds like socialism, and I know a lot of people, oh, you want to be a communist or a socialist? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that I don't know if you plopped a mega church in there in the New Testament, if that would fit in with any of the criteria that Jesus was saying we
Well,
should.
I'm
So I
gonna
don't know.
I'm gonna add one more thing to what you just said because you have me at hello on that. I already drank the Kool-Aid you're drinking. Here's my argument. If Americans tomorrow put for sale signs on every one of our churches, the billions and billions and billions of dollars that we would make, we could solve hunger
Every single
crises and
hunger
everything else.
crisis. I know.
But we're spending our money playing church when
I
there are
know.
suffering people, and it makes
I know.
no sense.
I know. I feel the same way for the amount of foster care children and orphans and I just not that's different. That's not money. That's opening your doors. But I do think the percentage should be higher for the amount of Christians we have like living. That's my like heart thing.
I
Um,
I
yeah,
couldn't
and I don't know if
agree
it's
more.
biblical to have one guy. I know everybody has like usually churches have board of directors, elders, everybody has these. However, I don't know. I can't find it in the Bible where it's like one dude gets up at a podium and like shares what God told him, and then we all go home. Like that doesn't really. But listen, we're in a deprived, horrible. That's why westernized culture. That's why I don't think we see miracles.
Yeah,
It's
all right, so we're going to use that to parlay into the next one. Hey, it's Todd Turner. Are you struggling with life after your divorce? I've created a divorce recovery class just for you. It's filled with honest, raw, real content to help you walk through your divorce healing. Enroll today at ToddTurner.com. There's more where this came from. Stick around. You got this.